Over in Ethiopia, families can heave a sigh of relief as the government announced it is releasing as many as 10,000 people detained under the state of emergency imposed in October. The government says another 2,500 people will be charged with crimes related to unrest. The released people will be given special training to ensure they will no longer engage in what it calls destructive behavior. Many of those detained are from the Oromo and Amhara region, where there have been protests for months over the country's political and economic situation. Staying in North Africa, Libyan authorities on Tuesday deported around 140 migrants who had previously arrived to Tripoli illegally via the Mediterranean. Head of protocol at Libya's immigration body, Abdel Razak Shenait, said that Libya has been working with the International Organization for Migration to arrange for the safe return of the migrants. Some 1.4 million refugees and migrants arrived in Europe this year and last year, and the European Union wants to cut back on the uncontrolled influx of people. The EU offered Niger 610 million euros on Thursday to curtail migration from Africa through the Mediterranean to Europe, and said it was seeking more of such money for migration deals ahead. The EU has already offered similar schemes to Senegal, Ethiopia, Nigeria and Mali, as well as to Afghanistan, Jordan, Lebanon and Turkey, among others. In the meantime, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, has been in the Nigerian city of Maiduguri, which has suffered the most from the Boko Haram insurgency. Mr. Grandi took on a tour of the Lake Chad Basin, has been meeting with displaced families in Niger, Chad and Cameroon to call attention to the needs of more than 2 million people displaced by the insurgency.
The UN refugee chief, Filippo Grandi, meets displaced civilians in Maiduguri, Borno State. This is part of his tour to the Lake Chad Basin, where families remain displaced by the Boko Haram insurgency. Mr. Grandi had already met affected civilians in Niger, Chad and Cameroon. The visit to Nigeria is the final stop of a 10-day trip to call attention to the needs of millions displaced by Boko Haram in the region. About 1.8 million Nigerians are now internally displaced after a 7-year insurgency staged by Boko Haram militants who want to create an Islamist caliphate. Displaced families have continued to face conflict and suffering in an area already facing extreme poverty, harsh climatic conditions, disrupted economic activity, and limited or destroyed infrastructure.
Humanitarian needs still huge. There's malnutrition, there's still problems of access to water, shelter conditions, and many protection problems, especially violence against women, SGBV.
The UN envoy met victims who suffered at the hands of Boko Haram after being kidnapped. They narrated their ordeal and how they managed to escape from their captors.
These are very terrible human experiences, including violence and isolation from the family. So I think I don't need to tell you, but we must all together help them come out of this experience.
The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs earlier this month doubled its humanitarian funding appeal for northeast Nigeria to $1 billion in 2017. Agencies have reported high levels of malnutrition, with over 400,000 children at risk from famine in Borno, Adamawa and Yobe states, according to the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF. Agencies are providing food aid and offering counseling as well as medical services for those displaced. Grandi has described the conflict as one of Africa's largest displacement crises, saying that the world cannot afford to brush it under the carpet.
So another development here in Nigeria is the dreaded plastic rice that has been showing up at the markets in the southwest. The Christmas season is usually a time when people have parties, and rice is a favorite meal then. The good news, however, is that the Nigeria Customs Service, under its Federal Operations Unit, Zone A, has confiscated 102 bags of plastic rice smuggled into the country.
We intensified our operations in search of the alleged plastic rice, and with the support of some patriotic Nigerians, most especially a member of the 4th Estate of the Realm, we were able to locate where this rice was stored for distribution to the public at this yellow tide period. As I speak with you, we have successfully evacuated 102 bags of 25 kg branded best tomato rice without any date of manufacture, not to talk of expiration date and NAFDAC batch number. We are still investigating to ascertain how many of this rice has been circulated and how best to retrieve it in order to protect and safeguard the health of Nigerians and to bring those behind it to book. You will agree with me that smuggling is a global phenomenon which cannot be calmed entirely, but can be brought to its barest minimum. I also want to use this medium to appreciate well-meaning Nigerians who provided us with the prompt information that led to this recovery.
Now, the so-called plastic rice is reportedly made by forming potatoes and sweet potatoes into the shape of regular rice grains, then adding industrial synthetic resins. It looks exactly like rice, but it remains hard after cooking and is feared to be a major causative factor in gastritis and other stomach-related diseases. Experts say there is no scientific testing method developed yet to detect this artificial rice from the original ones produced at various points of entry into the country. German police are now on the manhunt for a Tunisian suspect who could have links to the lorry attack at a Christmas market in Berlin on Monday. Police identified him as Anis A Tunisian born in the city of Tatouine in 1992. Information they got from an identity card recovered from the lorry involved in the attack. Local newspapers said the suspect, aged 21 or 23, is also known to use false names. He's reported to have traveled to Italy in 2012 and then on to Germany in 2015, where he applied for asylum and was granted temporary leave to stay in April of this year. He's said to be known to police and was briefly detained in August with fake Italian identity documents. Well, still ahead on Network Africa. Imagine going from one extreme temperature to another. Well, that's what's going on in the Sahara. So join us again.